back room. We're filming because we have a guest speaker on community aggregation power. Before we get into that, I'm going to start with some introductions of the Energy Committee. My name is Renee Allen, and I am the chair. Robin?
I'm Robin Tyner.
Elizabeth Stevens.
Amy Farnham.
Lou Hitzrow.
Cliff Sinnott.
Camille Weber.
Thank you. On the screen is a visual agenda, which tells you what we'll be speaking about today. This is for the benefit of people who are watching this video at home now or later. Our guest speaker is Bob Hayden from Standard Power. And our energy agenda is typically separated into 3 chunks: our clean energy projects, our education projects, and our efficiency projects. One thing I would like to draw your attention to is the graph, the pie chart there, showing that the New Hampshire energy mix of electricity is 67% nuclear at this time. We'd like to expand the renewables section, and also to let you know that when you're powering your electric car, it's basically being powered by nuclear. Okay, so the first thing up here, we have the approval of the minutes. Any comment?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay, Bob, here you go.
Well, thank you, Renee. Get this out of here. My name is Bob Hayden. I'm with Standard Power. Ooh, feedback. I may not need this microphone. There's that much feedback. I've been in the energy business for 10 years. It's picking me up on everything.
I don't know that you need it.
I think I don't need it because I'm always talk loud.
Okay.
Maybe there'll be less feedback if I just talk regular without that.
I think so.
Okay, sure.
All righty, well, I'm with Standard Power. I'm the President and Chief Technical Officer of Standard Power. We have been in the energy business for a number of years, 10, 12, because it was 2 years before I started. We've been in the renewable business ever since I started there. I kind of brought that legacy with me. I live in an earth-burn passive solar house that I built when I was in my 20s, so I've lived there over 30 years. Has solar PV on the roof. I do have one big sin, I don't own an EV yet. I'm getting really close. I need to do that. Can't drive a sports car forever. But I do like driving fast, and the EVs satisfy that. Today we're here to talk about community power, though, not how my lifestyle matches with the things we're trying to do here. I think you guys have already heard a lot about community power, so I'd like to ask you where you want me to focus, as I am very flexible in how I can do these kinds of meetings. So how much time would you like, and what would you like me to focus on?
We've done quite a bit of research on community power, and Cliff and I are part of the Exeter Community Power Aggregation Committee. I think we'd like to know the kind of services you provide. We've done a lot of research with CPCNH, and we kind of know what kinds of things they hope to provide. So giving us some background on, yes, the kind of services you provide, what area you serve, how many accounts you serve. That would give us some things to compare with, I think.
Okay, so we decided that it was best for us to join with a national level partner in this business for community power. So we partnered with Good Energy. They've done community power aggregation across the country. They have well over 100 plans in place, 40 in Massachusetts, 5 in Rhode Island. So they are already a big part of the New England ISO and the ways things work in the New England ISO. On the slide that was up, we were looking at the New Hampshire power stack. But the New Hampshire power stack is really not representative.
I was promised no more feedback.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks, Russ. So it's safe now. Oh, yes, it's safe. So
Walk too far.
the truth of the matter is we, as a power entity user, are part of the New England ISO. The fact is, if we were looked at separately, we would be power positive. In other words, we would make more power than we use here in New Hampshire, primarily because of the volume Seabrook is.
All right.
So, but that really just becomes part of the New England ISO, which we're a part of. So when we talk about community power aggregations here in New Hampshire, to some extent, we're talking about an aggregation that's across the New England ISO. Community power, as you know, really doesn't change too much on your bill initially. It just changes the supply portion. So that line on your bill, that one line changes initially in any plan. So the utility here, you have two utilities here, right?
No, just Unitil.
We have, in this town.
Isn't there a little bit of Eversource too?
No,
So-
not in
Not.
Exeter. It's all
Okay.
Unitil.
When I worked with the school district, there was some of both.
Because they have different towns.
Yeah, they have the other towns. Yep. So we here are subject to the rules of the Unitil tariff. So that's the rule book we have to participate with here. And Eversource is kind of similar also. Their rule books are about the same. They've worked politically together for a number of years. But really, it is the supply portion that changes. The biggest customer service issue is always, what's going to happen to my bill? Virtually nothing is the answer. And you asked what services we provide. I'll get to this a little more later, but we're a full-service company. When we talk about the coalition, we often know that they may be soliciting us for services, because we already have all of the services necessary to develop a committee, develop a plan, do community outreach, listen to the voice of the community, develop a plan based on that voice, and move it to the PUC. We've already done all of that with Keene. We surveyed the community, did community outreach, developed a plan, had their legislative body approve it, and in May we delivered it to the PUC. Now the Energy Department, who's yet to comment on when they'll review it. They got 60 days to do it. We just don't know what day one is. Day one will be someday, and then they'll have 60 days to review it and approve it.
What was the feedback from the PUC? Was there anything?
That we delivered it before they knew they had to review it? Well, it's the usual.
Yeah. What is this?
We're not prepared for this. We know you're not prepared for it, but we know you will be prepared for it, and we wanted to be first in line. Right behind us was Harrisville.
No.
Harrisville did it all by themselves as a tiny town. Very impressive. They did a great job on their own. So maybe when it comes time to buy electricity, they'll join up with us. We would like to think that. They purchased their municipal and school electricity from us already. Standard Power provides energy for 65 schools and towns in New Hampshire, and we include virtually all of those in a group net metering program so that their pricing is reduced by participating in a renewable energy program. So one of the lessons we learned as a company early on is if you want people to be green, you got to make it cost less. And by so doing, we can increase the proliferation of renewable energy across New Hampshire, across the New England ISO, and be part of the growth of this across the country, really. So a few things that community power can do. You guys already know this. You can have competitive rates, save some of the people who want to save money, save them money. You can have local control. And I'd say that's totally true with the Standard Power Good Energy team. We want every community to have a voice in how their plan works and what it is. We don't want to have committees and groups that are in between a town and their plan. We want it all to be their plan. Price stability. The utilities are bound to purchase your electricity every 6 months. So that means that prices go up and down on a bit of a roller coaster. With a plan like this, you can choose what term you want to purchase for. Not only that, you can purchase when you want, when the market's good to purchase. If Keene were ready today, I would say there's no way we're going to buy power today. Because on that graph that showed the power stack, it mentioned that Seabrook was a bunch of the power. Well, in the New England ISO, which we're a part of, really 50% of it, maybe a little more, is based on natural gas costs. 15 months ago, natural gas cost $1.75 a decatherm. Today, it hit $5. Almost triple price over the course of 15 months. So today's a bad day to buy power. Terrible day. Consumer protections. You ever get the cards in the mail? Offering you a great rate on your electricity, offering you a $100 credit card? I got the $100 credit card one recently. I called them up and I said, hey, that's great. What's the real price of the electricity? Well, as you know, the price of electricity was 6.6 cents here until August 1st. On August 1st, it went up to 8.8. The price they offered me was 12.8. I said, I guess I can do okay without your $100 credit card. Probably one of the most important things about all of the community power stuff is we can increase the percentage of renewables. This is critical. Critical, well, for our future. Critical for what? Your future, particularly. Right now, in New Hampshire, we have the lowest volume of renewable energy in the New England ISO states. We have about 20% renewable. That's mandated by our RPS. So that's the based amount of renewables. We want to be able to increase that for our communities we work with dramatically. Keene has a 100% rule by 2030. We expect to be working with Peterborough before long. They just voted in a 100% law last legislative session. So that's new for them, but it's in place. Planning, projects. How do we get to those steps? How do we prepare for a future that we think will happen? Right now, our laws and our rules and our tariffs are a little bit behind the rest of the New England ISO. They've fallen far behind over the last 10 years. 20 years ago, we were kind of a leader on energy matters. We were one of the first states to have group net metering. We had a LEPA law that was supposed to enable some very cool transfer of power, which never happened. The law never worked. SB 91 addresses that, might fix it. Planning and local programs. I think, enabling other renewable projects in a community is great. I strongly recommend it. I have solar. There's one of the best programs we've enacted that's not particularly used yet is low to moderate income solar. It was codified and rule made and it had one big gaping hole in it. The extra revenue that was promised into the program didn't have a time stamp on it. So SB 91 addresses that also. So another nice thing in SB 91. More than anything, education and awareness of a program like this is critical. So when we start by surveying the community, having open meetings for people to participate in, go into local clubs. Any of the clubs that'll have us will speak at them, the Rotary, Kiwanis, whoever it is. We'll Zoom, we'll go in person. We want to engage the community as much as possible. We want the community to have a voice in what their plan is. We're not going to tell you what your plan should be. We want your community to define what it will be. And the best way to do that is get folks involved. Education. Part of the awareness is education on the fact that they can make a difference. Everybody in the community can have a voice and can have a piece of the development of the plan by answering surveys, by participating in open meetings. And in so doing, maybe they become engaged. Right now, I know the people here that are sitting here care. They care about a renewable energy future. It's great. Thank you for your time. But you're a representative of a small percentage of your community. We need to get more people involved. And the way to do that is through education and providing information so that they can become engaged. And gee whiz, if we successfully implement a program and do all the things the community asks for, maybe we pick up 5 or 10 more percentage points of people who are engaged in this future and the evolution of this living document called the Community Power Plan. Let's see here. All right. Who can participate is a good one. Anybody who's unserved by a third-party supplier can participate in this. So some people have filled out those cards and gotten the $100 credit cards or the different rate or all those things from third-party suppliers. Some of them are really good. Some of them are honest and they're very cool companies, but there are also unscrupulous ones out there, and that's what I watch out for and why I say these protections are good. But anybody who has an unserved meter can join the program or automatically joins the program. The change in the law in 2019 was that a community aggregation went from sign in to opt out. So that means that before only 20% of folks would participate and sign in. Now, if somebody wants to, they can sign out, and we assume that the participation rate of eligible customers will be 95%, 90 to 95%, so there'll be some fallout. And we hope to bring those people back who fall out with education and outreach. Normally a program should have a default option that's automatic if they do nothing. It looks like that option will probably be, in most cases, a price similar to the utility with additional green power. Also, a choice would be the lowest price possible. No additional features, just the lowest cost we can possibly get on the power stack. We're seeing that as about a 30%, 15 to 30% number when we do surveys. So some communities have more than others, but in a survey, we ask people what they want. So that's usually about 15%. And then there's folks who want to pay maybe a little more than the utility rate. That probably means they get to 50% renewable. And there's folks that just say, I don't care. I want 100% green. I want it now. I want to do that. I want to make that commitment. So you know that somebody like me probably does that already if I can. There are no penalties or cancellation fees. You can get out of these programs immediately. It's kind of one of the good things and bad things about the program is if somebody wants to be out this month and back next month, as long as they're doing it on their meter read date, they can come and go as they please. As I told you, this is a little bit about Standard Power. We serve 65 schools and towns. We had the group net metering program I mentioned is the largest in New Hampshire. We have 25 hydro facilities all around New Hampshire that provide reimbursements to communities and schools through group net metering. We have some communities who partially participate on that and have their own assets, their own renewable assets like solar, and we integrate those all together to maximize the value to the community. So we do the accounting and administration for towns that have multiple programs going on already. There's a good handful of towns that have that sort of thing happening. So what that says is Standard Power has been doing these renewable energy things for years already. We have a lot of experience in it. Good Energy brings 10 years of experience in community power across the country. In other states that are years ahead of us on this. They have 40 active communities in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts. I think they're actually up to 45 now. They just had a few more add in to one of their groups. A buying group was launched in Rhode Island. Rhode Island was originally on our timeline, but they didn't have a poison pill bill thrown at their program. They didn't have an HB 315 thrown at it. So they've actually been able to launch plans already. So now they're 6 months ahead of us, maybe 8 months, depending on what our PUC does. But the fact remains, a lot of these things are done in buying groups. And the individual communities all have separate plans that they develop based on the voice of their community. So aggregating them together to buy whatever the basic power is an easy and well-done mechanism. It's not rocket science, it's something we do all the time. With our schools and towns we work with, we have 3 buying groups that are renewing every year, all the time. Every year there's another group renewing, and they're offset by a couple of years. So if somebody wants to join one of our groups, there's always a group renewing, 6 months or a couple months later. So we already do that for municipalities and schools, and that represents about 50 million to 60 million kilowatt hours. Good Energy is in the gigawatts of volume across their communities. They work across the country. So we have the experience to do now what our competitors hope to do and haven't done before. So that's one of the big differences. Here is another big difference is we work under a 2-page MOU where we help you develop your committee. You guys already have one. We help you develop the plan and do community outreach based on that. And we'll work with you right up to delivering the plan to your legislative body or having it voted on. Do you have town meeting here? You do. When is your town meeting?
March.
March? Okay. When is your last day for having warrant articles put in?
December?
January.
First week in
Our
January.
warrant needs to be posted by the last Monday in January.
Last Monday.
Right.
That's pretty generous.
Our deliberative session is first Saturday in February.
Cool. So having a program ready for that time frame is still very viable, depending on what our PUC/Energy Department does. We don't believe in a big document with lots of if, ands, or buts. We don't want to have your lawyers review plans that are voluminous, but what we really want is for each community to have their own voice, even though they'll buy together in a large group. That's another big difference. The cost and the risk. We've seen across the country bad things happen where risk is borne by a community or a state. We don't want any of that. We strongly want our electricity purchases to be highly weighted by national level companies that can endure national level events. We don't want anything in New Hampshire to happen like has happened in other states. And really, they shouldn't. There's no reason, there's no value yet to making a true supplier company for the amount of communities that will buy electricity in New Hampshire. What is important is being able to add in whatever projects you want to do as a community, sleeving those in through a supplier who's familiar with doing those sorts of things so that you can take advantage of your own community's wants and investments. We will work with you to any extent. From what little I know and can see, you probably have a robust team for putting together your community power plan. We're happy to work with a community that has an active development team. Keene was very engaged. But we're working with some towns who, particularly some of the smaller towns, who don't have that. They don't have much engagement. So we're even helping towns develop their committee through the outreach program, through surveys, just asking, is there anybody who'd like to participate? We'll see how that works, but it's working a little bit in one of our towns. So we can work with small towns or big towns, as we do now for municipal electricity. We can work with any set of goals your community happens to have, and we can integrate your local programs. We will do buying groups. We will do large buying groups. It's worked for us for 10 years, and it's what makes sense in this environment also. I think the number now for Good Energy is up to about 85 to 90 million of savings across all of their plans. So they do have a lot of people who say we want the cheapest option, unfortunately. You're already along the way on this path. You've already appointed a committee. You may have, I don't think you've signed any documents yet. We'd love to work with you and have you work under our simple MOU document. Your attorney can review it in about 30 seconds. Well, billable hours, it'll be an hour. The first thing we'd do is do community outreach as fast and as deep as we possibly could so we can hear the voice of the community as much as possible and add that voice into the design and development of a plan. We'd help you with any meetings that are associated with approvals at the town level. We'd notify the utilities, we'd apply to the commission to approve your program. When we go to buy electricity, we'd ask you to sign the document that allows us to get your data, and then we'd do purchasing. We don't have any secondary documents yet. They'll be developed by the PUC and will be as minimal as possible. We're minimalistic all along the way on all of our supply work for schools and towns. we've delivered lower cost renewable products embedded in school and town purchases for years through group net metering. And so we're always a little bit ahead on that. And then we'll launch the program. As I said earlier, these programs are a living document. So managing and monitoring them and presenting some format for the communities to see their successes in is critical in the evolution of that living document. And hopefully, the engagement of some of the folks who weren't participating historically, folks who want to see these things happen but didn't participate much before. Getting them involved is wonderful when we can. So I've mentioned a few of the little things that are in SB 91. Another one that I didn't mention is a couple of study bills. One's for storage, batteries, but any storage device. Could even be pump storage, which is a form of hydro. And then LIPA, I mentioned it was ineffective law from 25 years ago. They want to study how they can do a willing buyer buying from a willing generator that's only separated by distribution lines, giving them an opportunity to avoid the transmission cost. And that's a pretty big and growing fee in our electricity cost. So as I said, HB 315 was a poison pill when it came out. And I'll tell you, I'm pretty left-leaning when it comes to energy matters. So there's this guy, Mike Vose, you may know his name, you may know him even, who's always been very right-leaning. And so we've clashed many times in session. I typically speak at a lot of political sessions. I'm always involved in the evolution of our laws, or the attempt to evolve our laws. And you know, Michael's been difficult at times. But not this time. Mike did magic. Mike Vose did magic. He got the left and the right, the Republicans and the Democrats, the third-party suppliers, some municipal entities, and developers like Standard Power, Community Power Coalition, Freedom Logistics, Colonial, all were participating in this work session to evolve HB 315. And Mike did magic. He got people to talk to each other, listen to each other, and compromise. Something sorely missing in our political processes here in New Hampshire and across the country. So I told Mike, when a couple Thursdays ago when the governor signed these two bills, Mike was there, I was there, and I said, Mike, I know we don't get along, but you did magic. And I tell everybody who I talk to about HB 315 that you did magic, and if they know you, they should say thank you, because you did something very rare in our political process. What happened, though, after all that happened, is it went to the Senate, and they stuck on SB 109, which was the expansion of group net metering for municipalities, schools, and counties. We'll see what those details are on those three words after it goes through rulemaking. Personally, I was a little concerned that this might again poison the bill. But fortunately, it slid right through, and now we not only have a great bill called HB 315 that enables many of the details that were problematic, encourages the suppliers to participate, and gives communities room to have their own plans, products, and programs. And we have the ability to do group net metering up to 5 megawatts for a school or town. So those are great things that happened. And that's the fast version. We did the fast version, so you'd have plenty of time for questions. So, what are your questions, folks?
I have a question. In the interest of time, I just wanted to know, what is your, there must be some costs that your company earns for this, and what is your pricing scheme?
So when you actually buy power, we receive 1/10 of 1 cent per kilowatt hour. That's the only fee. We expect that all of the work we're doing now, all of the community outreach, things like that, will probably mean that hopefully we break even in the first year or two of a program. So as a regular company, for-profit company, we invest in our future. Doing these programs, developing them, is an investment. We will not lose money from it. we may lose our investment. But our companies won't be threatened by doing it. Our existence won't be threatened if there's, if people leave the program because prices crash.
Oh, thank you. Did you gentlemen have questions?
Aside from Keene, how many other New Hampshire towns are you working with? Are you likely to have on board as customers?
Well, right now, the only one that's signed another MOU is Swansea. We're working with several others to develop their committees in expectation of signing the MOU. So just those two cities right now, or town and city.
A couple of questions. One is, you had mentioned early on that your experience has been that you can offer a larger percentage of renewable than the default at less price. That's been your experience so far?
That's been how we've encouraged people to participate in a group net metering program. So they receive a reimbursement on a quarterly basis from that program. At this time, the city of Keene has one of those facilities already committed to them. So they've already received $10,000 towards their community power program. The community power program, we're waiting to be approved by the PUC.
Right.
So they have funding already growing from these programs.
The other question I had is, I don't quite understand the role of Good Energy. Are they like the risk managers, or they further aggregation of power, or what?
So the risk managers are large suppliers, the same suppliers that the utilities buy their power from. That's where the risk management is. So we don't need a risk manager. We don't need that extra expense in our programs. As long as the laws are the way they are in New Hampshire, they may change. We know that the best venue is to go through a third-party supplier, let them endure the risk, and we'll add on to them. Good Energy brings the experience of having implemented these programs. Standard Power has just worked with BAs and town managers and CFOs of companies. We haven't done community outreach. We haven't done, massive amounts of meetings to get input. We haven't worked with select boards to approve plans or to make changes in them. We haven't done the back office stuff of service when there's calls that are directed from the utility to us or from the community to us. We haven't done that. Right. We haven't done the iterative programs of taking the information and presenting it back to the community for their presentation on their website or doing with it as they choose. So Good Energy has done all the things we haven't done. We've aggregated large volumes of power and done purchasing for it, as has Good Energy. So we've both done that, but we haven't done all of those other services.
Community power part.
That I think if we look at the coalition, we may actually bid in on their RFPs to do some of those things, because we are planning on doing them. We may offer them as a service.
Thank you.
Who sets the kilowatt hour cost to the consumer, to the individual customer? Is it you, or is it you in consultation with the community? I'm thinking in terms of producing a reserve fund. And clearly, to produce a reserve fund, there has to be some differential between what the customer pays and what the actual cost of the energy is. So, who sets the cost to the consumer?
The community outreach program can allude to whether they need that. If they do, the committee has to be in favor of it and add to that fee that's charged on every kilowatt hour. So
add to the fee that you charge per kilowatt hour. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so if you said, well, we feel like the community wants to do these programs, everybody said they wanted to. 80% of people said they wanted to have more renewable projects in the community that we can speak to. If we can't go and build those projects without extra funding, then a reserve fund might help that. We don't need the risk fund to protect us from any risk management associated with purchasing blocks of power, because we won't be working that way. But we could use it. Now, in the case of Keene, we have already a group net metering program that's developing those funds right now, and will probably be at 20 grand by the end of the year.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sorry that I'm not fully versed in all of this, but if we decide as a town to move forward with this, there's basically one option that we're giving, right? So we're saying, here's the rate, one rate. Or are we offering multiple rates? Okay.
Multiple. So we want to hear from what the town wants. We kind of know that there'll be a block of folks, and we don't know how big it is,
They want the lowest.
that'll want the lowest.
Yep.
That's fine. That would be the regular RPS 20% product.
Okay.
And they'd have to check a checkbox probably to get it. And I'm quoting the Keene plan. There'll be another group that'll say, we'll pay about what the default service rate is if we can get more green. That is going to be the automatic option. There'll be two more options. One's 50% additional green and 100% additional green. This is a community who's already voted to be 100% renewable by 2030, so they're hoping to come out of the box at between 40 and 45% renewable on the day the plan starts.
And then what does that look like? How long are we locked into that? When will, if those rates change, have we locked into a certain amount of time for that?
Yeah, normally, we think that the town manager will be empowered to sign a contract at some point. There's another weight on your shoulders there. There's always more weight, but
He already
yeah,
does
few.
that.
So the expectation is these contracts will be some amount longer than the 6 months the utility is,
Okay.
to enjoy some price stability.
Okay.
So in business with schools and towns, it's virtually always 2 years. I have a couple of 3-year contracts. Derry did one that was 3 years. They made a great call. I kind of pushed them a little bit, but they did make a great call when we were still in the middle of COVID, early in COVID, when natural gas was $1.75 instead of $5 like it is today. So they made a good choice and went 3 years. They locked in a great rate.
Okay. So we'll have options like that?
Yep.
Okay.
And we want to base those options on what the community asks for. We also want to start with the New Hampshire Saves program for everybody, get anybody who can do it to do it. And then maybe in the first round, maybe in the second round, we approve a additional fee for a reserve fund to supplement programs through New Hampshire Saves.
You're talking about the weatherization program?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the best kilowatt hour
Right.
is the one you don't have to buy.
Right.
So when you find out what the community wants, it's like a survey or a poll,
Yep.
and then, and you base the plans off of that, but then once it comes time for people to actually sign up, how closely does it have to match what that estimate was?
It doesn't.
It doesn't have to, okay.
It doesn't have to match.
Okay,
And it'd probably be way different.
right.
Because half the people who said they wanted to pay less
Are
won't
gonna
do
go-
anything.
Right, okay.
And half the ones who said, oh, I want to buy 100% may not like the rate once they see it.
Right.
Right.
So things are dynamic. They have to be dynamic.
And the Keene survey was what, only 160 people who replied, right?
The actual paper survey that we sent out
Yeah.
through the Monadnock shopper, yeah.
Yeah.
But we did Rotary meetings, we did open public meetings, so we did a variety of other mechanisms to add to that. But yeah, it was small.
Can you describe specifically some of the community outreach programs that you promulgate?
So I ask you, what is the most commonly read flyer in the town?
That's a good question.
Is there even one left? There might not be.
The Exeter
The newsletter might be
newsletter.
it, but,
That might be one way.
yeah.
Would also ask if there's a shopper, a local shopper newspaper.
It's like the Carriagetown News.
Carriagetown News, well, maybe that's one we would use. We'd reach out to your clubs and service organizations and ask to present there, and ask for them to send out to their email lists the opportunity to participate and ask for surveys there. So it'll be different in every town.
How would you use Exeter TV? And we do have Exeter TV, which is becoming more and more popular. How would
We
you?
would ask you what you think the best way to do it is.
Yeah.
As two committee members,
Yeah.
we'd probably work on a script and a presentation that you felt was appropriate to use. We would engage you, and we'd expect you to help. And if you didn't want, we'd make a script ourselves, but I suspect in this community, you'd be highly engaged and want to help.
All right, any final questions before we move on?
I've got one. Just one last thing, and that is the Community Power Coalition. How is what you're doing, or how's what they're doing similar to what you're doing, and how is it different? And how do you envision working with or in competition with them in the future?
So historically, we've all worked together.
Yeah.
We've been political allies for many years.
Right.
So, and in the end, we probably have very similar goals. But we don't, at Standard Power and Good Energy, we don't feel like the Joint Powers Agreement, we feel it's too unwieldy. We feel the recovery mechanisms in the secondary document are unnecessary. We feel that every community should have a clear voice in developing their own plan and shouldn't be subjected to the votes of other people who have decided how something will look. Now, it may work that way, it may not, but that's how it presents in the data we've read. So we will aggregate towns into buying groups, but each town will have had their say in what their plan looks like and the development thereof. So those are subtle differences. I think in the future, in a future that needs to be law-made, rule-made, stuff like that, there'll be a lot of things we can do, and we'll see who gets there first on a variety of things. Kind of unpublicized and not part of the plan, we're already looking at doing a resilience zone in Keene, where we would have large generation available in town, on site, for municipal emergency vehicles, communication center, some housing, a medical center, and have those things have the ability to have instant on in a grid emergency.
Is that through storage mostly?
Not mostly, but secondarily, yes. It would have a storage element. It'll be like a microgrid. The law allows for that right now. So that's something we can take advantage of. And you look at this community, and I don't know where the power comes from, but there are a lot of things in close proximity that might be able to be islanded. Yeah, I think it would be very difficult, but that's how you have to do it. You have to somewhat island these entities so that you can deliver power and instant on service. Or full-time service to start with that maybe only buys electricity off the grid occasionally.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Bob. That was a very thorough presentation.
You have my presentation, but here's a few cards. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to call. And if you guys ever want a speaker at anything at the school, I'd be happy to do it.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to call.
Did you get one?
Anytime, anything energy, if you want a conversation, let me know. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
You're very generous. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave that, okay?
Sure.
All right.
Great.
Have a great day, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you to Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
We've heard one example of how community power could be worked up in this town. On a second example, I mean, we're interviewing many vendors and figuring out different ways to do this, but we have our own committee working on our own new committee, the Exeter Community Power Aggregation Committee. Cliff and Lou are on this committee, and this is a spin-off of the Energy Committee. There are also several other members on the committee. But would you guys like to give an update on your paperwork?
Sure. I'll just start and say a few things about what we did at our last meeting, August 23rd meeting. We had Henry Herndon of Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire was a guest at our meeting, and he went through the current business plan for CPCNH with us and got a lot of questions and a lot of discussion with our resident expert, Nick Devonshire, who really knows a lot about the power business. Cliff presented a draft of the introduction to a community power plan, and we have copies of that because we thought it'd be a good idea for everyone on the Energy Committee to take a look. So maybe we should just say a bit about that now. I've got copies here we can pass out, and Cliff, if you want to take over.
What's being passed out is just the goals and objectives part of the plan,
that's
so
right.
that, because we wanted the Energy Committee to weigh in on whether you thought this was an appropriate set of goals and objectives. They're ones that we've talked about in various ways in the past, both at the Energy Committee and when Lou and I presented this to the selectmen. So there are things like the goal being to expand and accelerate the use of renewable energy in the town to sort of further the town's goals when it comes to renewable energy, to create a more cost-effective way of doing that through aggregation, participating and collaborating with other communities in the region or the state, working toward local or in-state power generation projects or programs in the future that would prioritize renewable energy. You can see that, but I think we'd love to get some feedback about whether these are the appropriate goals for us to put on paper in this plan and say, this is what we as the town of Exeter say that why we're doing this. What's the purpose?
And
basically.
when would you like this feedback?
In the next month, I would say.
Okay, all right, we'll put it on the agenda for the next. But do you want to continue?
And one other thing, since our aggregation committee met last time, we had come up with our own sort of outline of what the plan is, and that's what this is from, a template, sort of. But the Community Power Coalition, Henry, sent out, subsequent to that, a much more fully developed template that actually is kind of almost filled in all the way of what a potential plan would be. And they're somewhat similar. There are sections that are quite similar because the half dozen plans that exist in the state are all quite similar in terms of their content, and ours will be too, and so is this template. So we're all kind of converging on the same spot. But in their template, in their goals section, there were 3 other good goals that I think we should add to ours. One was grid modernization. That's a goal that we can, through our own kind of project development in the future, work toward that. Resilience, Bob mentioned that, and community resilience is a really important thing, and it dovetails nicely with more local power generation and storage projects. So those are 2 good ones. And then the other one I think we already have in here, which is prioritizing the development of local and in-state renewable projects.
Yeah.
And I think in the list that you have that Lou passed out, we also mentioned, the affordability of it, and that's not to be lost. And I was really happy to hear what Bob was saying about their experience in terms of a greater mix than the RPS mix is already affordable. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more so, I think.
And that's their default mix. That's,
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So we at our next meeting, which is this coming Monday, we'll be going over this that you see before you and probably updating it. But yes, feedback from the rest of the committee would be very useful. We also, at our previous meeting, began to talk about how we are going to reach out to the community to talk about community power, get the community to understand what community power is. And we are thinking of putting together a panel discussion with probably 2 members of our committee and then 2 experts, probably Henry Herndon and someone else, a kind of a scripted panel discussion that would be followed up with an open-ended Q&A that anybody attending the TV broadcast of this panel discussion could then call in and ask questions of the panel. So that's on our planning for this coming meeting. I've spoken with Bob Glowacki. He has also some good ideas of how we could do that. So hopefully that'll be something that we would do. I think we decided mid-November as a possibility for doing that. So that's pretty much where we are right now.
Okay.
Cliff, any other things that you know?
All right. Thank you very much.
Would it be helpful if we all got our comments back to you before the Monday meeting, before your next
If
meeting?
you have them, that'd be great.
Yeah. We did
Okay.
talk about a timeline at the last meeting, and if, our reach goal, I think, is to have this draft shareable in November, so that it can go to the selectmen in time for them to determine whether they want to push it on to town meeting in March. So,
Okay, so the faster the better?
yeah.
Okay. All right, then we'll do that. Okay? All right, next up on the agenda. Usually we have the Sustainability Officer, Dave Sharples, give an update. He's out of town, so I asked him to send me an email of updates, so I'm going to read this. Here is the Sustainability Update. Dave has proposed making the Natural Resources Planner a full-time position for the 2020 budget. The duties of this is NRP, will be expanded to provide staff support to the Energy Committee, Sustainability Advisory Committee, and work on energy and sustainability efforts of the town. The Sustainability Advisory Committee had voted to recommend the creation of a position to the BRC to work on sustainability efforts, but I have discussed my proposal with them, and they are in full support and are no longer planning on submitting a separate request for the position. So that's exciting.
That's great.
All right, and then...
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gives an update on the solar array. Okay, he talks a little bit about the net metering, as Bob had mentioned on the screen there, how that all went down. Anyway, he's excited about that, and he has been emailing with Revision, and they have emailed him this in reply. So Revision says this: I think the overarching message to or for the Energy Committee is that there has been a long time since the original RFP response. Getting to town meeting, then negotiating the letter of intent, the financial equation has several important levers that none of us control. Utility rates, interconnection costs, rec prices, interest rates, that all change over time. So far, so good, except we definitely have concerns that the trend in interconnection costs from the utility seems to be up. They are a monopoly. And with the post-COVID and now Delta, supply chain issues are putting upwards prices on all components of solar arrays, from copper to steel racking to silicon panels. We are hopeful that perhaps later this year, inflationary pressure will recede, and when we are going to establish the final price, going to contract in December, that we will be able to absorb any increases and still offer the project for the $3.317 million that the voters approved. If not, then town leaderships will have some decisions to make. And you, the Energy Committee, have advised the town leadership all along the way, so we, Revision, will be keeping you apprised through the fall so that you can pass along info as you feel appropriate. We do not want any sudden or unpleasant surprises sprung. But the big picture to remember is that under the town turnkey purchase path you chose, the 40-year savings is nearly $6 million. If things change and that drops to $5.5 million or even $5 million, is it a bad choice? It's really the near-term challenge of having the project be cash positive, no impact to the taxpayer, that is the high bar we've set for this path. I suppose the ultimate fallback would be, assuming it still works financially, and the lease the land, let an investor build it. That is an option. If you'd like to discuss any of this with me or have me come to the Energy Committee meeting, just let me know.
And that was from you to tell all that you read at the...
That was from Revision.
I mean, Revision, I'm sorry.
Yes, so... So, anyway, there's that. It could be coming up, or it could just go away, but I think it's best to be notified of it ahead of time.
Be interesting if we had a little bit better understanding of what the potential upside is, how much the cost might go up?
I believe it was $7,000. It was $5,000 the first year and $2,000 in the second year to the taxpayers. Do you remember, Russ?
That sounds familiar.
It was something like that, $7,000. It wasn't huge upfront.
And is the time frame such that we would be doing the bond in January? I think that's what Dave told us last time. Is that right?
So originally, that was part of our plan. I mean, I think that was the track we were on, and we wanted to do this interconnection study to kind of bear out, what the specifics were of hooking it up and so forth. And then, but we, as authorized debt, we have the ability to roll that January into June or July if we want to. So if there are things that happen in the market that make you go, oh, wait, let's
Do it now.
6 months, this would be better. We'd be better off doing it then. We could do that because our borrowing times are typically December, January, or June, July. So it's just something to think about.
All right, thank you. Well, between COVID and this HB 315, there have just been unforeseen strangeness all around us. So, any other questions on that? Okay, so we're going to move on to the education projects, and I'd just like to state, first of all, that we are going to have a Zoom field trip to ISO New England on October 7th at 5 p.m. Kate Ebsen will be hosting us over there at ISO. Specifically, I think we want to find out exactly how these distributed energy resources would affect the grid. If we're going for these community power projects, this is part of grid modernization anyway, so we want to figure out see exactly how this all works. The second thing is every year we go to the annual LES, which is Local Energy Solutions Conference, and this one is on October 8th. That's all day in Nashua at the Grapponi Center. I have my ticket. You guys got your tickets? Okay. Are you presenting?
I'm not this year.
Oh, Amy's not presenting. Okay. All right. Well, that's something we do every year. We'll be talking about community power and other things at this. This is how we educate ourselves. But we also like to educate the public. So the last two bullets are public education, and this is the rebates and solar exemptions and more webpage that Betsy and Amy were putting together over this summer. You guys want to give an update? Is it live?
It is live. Yep, Bob has finished it, and it looks great. It's live on the town website, and the Energy Committee Facebook page will be sending out pieces of it every 2 weeks to the communities, and then it'll just kind of roll over after a while. So, for example, 1 week, it'll be federal exemptions, and then the next week it'll be appliance rebates,
Great.
or every other week. So.
Psych. All right.
Yeah.
Nice job, you guys. I think I'd like to put out a press release on that.
The solar exemption piece, he put on the assessing page
Yeah.
and not
seems.
the rebate page.
Okay, I'll get together with you and we'll
Yeah,
write a press
yeah.
release and put that out into the
What are
Exeter
actual
newsletter.
links to get there? Like, how do you,
We'll send them out.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just for like anybody watching? 'cause it-
Oh, so, right, if you go on to, what is it, exeternewhampshire.gov?
Yep.
Is that our website?
Yeah, the town website.
And then assessing will give you this, if you go down to the assessing page, it'll do a thing about the solar exemption, it'll give you a link there. And then there's, you go up top to committees, and then you go to the energy committee. And from that page, is there a link to the rebate page?
Yep, there's a link, and I think there's a link through the Sustainability Committee, too.
Oh, good.
Great, so on 2 pages, on the Energy Committee page and on the Sustainability Advisory Committee page, you can find these rebates and save yourself some money. That's what we're all about, right? Okay,
Maybe not all.
well,
Green energy too.
maybe for the layperson. Okay, efficiency projects, that's our third charge. So Amy's been working on some town hall attic insulation quotes. We had done this prior to COVID. It's been on delay for quite some time. There was a leak in the town hall. It's now fixed, and
And I apologize, I don't have many updates. So Ted Stiles from Yankee Thermal was supposed to revise his proposal and get it back to me. Haven't gotten it back. Newell and Crathern would like to come back and get data again based on what they did up on the steeple and whatnot. So I don't remember, did I go through your office to do that?
Yeah, I have an email out to Jeff too to ask him about the maintenance
Jeff Beck.
project budget. Jeff Beck, our
Yep.
maintenance superintendent.
Yep.
So that's in the queue. We're waiting his response.
Oh, okay. So I'll connect with you on when we can get them back over here.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, thanks.
And the third vendor, was it Prism, as I remember, Prism Energy or something?
Yeah.
All right, so we got 3 quotes.
Right.
All right, so ongoing.
They were really high, so we kind of just
Okay.
knocked them off.
All right, thank you. And now we have a special update from our high school liaison. We have a student liaison to the Energy Committee. Her name is Camille Weber. She's here down on the end.
I don't have a big update, but my first newspaper meeting of the year is tomorrow. So if you have any ideas for articles, let me know. I'm thinking about one on community power advocacy.
Terrific, yeah. That'd be great.
And then Renee gave me the vests for the electric car event. So I'm doing some embroidery on those.
You know those green vests that we wear to park cars or whatever? She's going to make that her logo.
No.
Embroidery.
Green Energy Fashion Show.
Yeah. She's working on that.
Camille?
Camille, I thought also maybe it might be interesting for the school newspaper for the rebates page that these guys just did. Maybe there's some tie-in that you could do there
Right.
to let the high school community, especially the teachers, know about the rebates, but also the students could let their parents know, about the rebates.
I also, I think I'm going to hold off on the electric bus project for a little while longer because I'm still working on the one for the house, the solar for the house. And then I'm working with 2 students from Belmont High School on creating a club kind of organization statewide for working with schools on energy efficiency projects.
Great.
Cool.
Nice.
If you need more information about community power, there's a great website is the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire website. It's really pretty good in terms of giving a background.
Anything else, Camille?
No.
Okay, then we'll just wind up quickly here. Garrett, I don't know if you can show the electric car poster on the screen, but we are having our 3rd annual electric vehicle showcase at the town hall in front of the bandstand on Sunday, September 26th. This is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stop by for a couple minutes if you want. We'll be having coffee and cars. Check it out. I was just visiting some of the dealerships today, seeing if they would bring down any cars to be professionally test-driven. And Lou usually helps people sign up and take those test drives on the side of the town hall. Right by the bandstand is where the local owners will be parked with their hoods up, and you can breeze by and ask them questions. The final thing on the agenda here is networking partnerships. This past summer, I spoke with Palmer and Sicard over there about what kinds of efficiency projects they have in commercial HVAC. This month, I spoke with people from 350 NH, the Exeter branch. They contacted me because they're interested in doing a project with insulation on mobile homes, like the button-up type of thing. 'Cause we have, in Exeter here, the largest amount of mobile homes in the state. It might be something like 500. And typically, they need some more insulation than they do. So she's trying to this group, Stephanie Marshall and Skip Berrien and some others, are trying to erase the barriers that mobile home owners have to be able to insulate their homes through the New Hampshire Saves project.
That's a great initiative.
Yeah, it's a really good project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And actually, when I was at your Veterans Energy Forum, remember I asked the question of Executive Counselor Janet Stevens?
Yep.
So I got Janet Stevens in touch with Stephanie Marshall, and they're speaking about this project now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully there'll be
Awesome.
some funding through the state for
Yeah,
that.
she's really reactive to.
Yeah, she was. She was good. Okay, Well, sorry for the long meeting today. See you guys next time.
Thank you all.
Motion to close?
So moved.
Seconded.
Approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television.